Reverend Falwell, as you know, passed on to his reward not too long ago. And he walks up to the pearly gates, and Peter opens up the book of life and says, "Hey, man, there ain't nothing about you in here." So this big trap door opens, and he falls down to the other place. And the devil says, "We are so glad to see you here, Mr. Falwell. I have been expecting you for a long time. We're going to give you VIP today. It's not anything like what you were telling anybody about either. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, on Monday is Gluttony Day. You get to practice a different vice every day of the week. Monday is Gluttony Day. You can have saturated fat, monosodium glutamate, cholesterol. I don't care. You're already dead. It's not going to hurt you. Tuesday is tobacco day. You can smoke, you can chew, pipe, cigars, cigarettes, you name it. Wednesday is chemical dependency day. You can try alcohol, you can try cocaine, crack, LSD, you name it. It's not going to hurt you. You're already dead. Thursday, Mr. Falwell, is orgy day. and any woman you want, just, all day long. You're not going to have to worry about age. You're already dead. Well, Falwell's really getting pretty happy about this. Things like this is just answer my secret prayer. And, well, funny you should mention that, because the devil turns to Mr. Falwell and says, "Mr. Falwell, are you gay?" And he says, "I'm certainly not gay." And the devil thinks and says, "You're going to hate Christ." Now, I call that joke to illustrate that people will do all sorts of really strange and crazy things because they think that God wants them to, and they're building a mansion for themselves in heaven. I'm having a little technical difficulty. They're building a mansion for themselves in heaven. They're building up numbers of virgins that can satisfy their desires or whatever. And this causes them to do a lot of things that they would not do otherwise. Now, if all this does is make them do something relatively innocuous or even nice, like helping poor people, I don't have any problem with that. If somebody believes God wants them to feed the poor or whatever, that's a good thing. And as Thomas Jefferson said, it neither breaks my leg nor picks my pocket. So whenever I'm talking about religion and religious freedom and that kind of thing, I apply the Jefferson test to it. If it doesn't cost me anything and it doesn't hurt me, then they're entitled to their belief and they can believe whatever they want. I may disagree with their theology, but I'm going to support their right to practice that. Unfortunately for the rest of us, religion has been doing a great deal of leg breaking and picking pockets over the centuries, and certainly is doing so today. If we look at what's going on for faith-based initiatives, Americans United for Separation of Church and State estimates that $65 billion has gone to faith-based initiatives. That's billion with a B. This came from one of their newsletters, and it's also on their website. Now, you do the math, and that's $200 for everybody in this room who is a taxpayer has gone to faith-based initiatives. So they're certainly picking our pockets. They are going after scientific research. There was a survey the other day that said that over half of the scientists surveyed at the Environmental Protection Agency have experienced either political harassment or actually their research findings being changed before they were published, primarily because of the political influence of some sort of ideology. In his book, God is Not Great, Why Religion Poisons Everything, Christopher Hitchens repeatedly drives home the idea that it is extremely dangerous for people with 21st century weapons to have 8th century or 1st century belief systems. Muhammad never flew an airliner into a building because there were no airliners and there were no skyscrapers that were big enough to be worth flying an airliner into. The Christian Emperor Constantine never had to worry about dropping tactical nuclear weapons on anybody because they didn't exist. So they did do a lot of damage. They destroyed, in many cases, entire cultures, but it took a lot more time and a lot more work and a lot more conscious effort. Nowadays, we have significant numbers of people in the administration who, every time they make a foreign policy decision related to the Middle East, they wonder whether they're fulfilling prophecy in the book of Daniel and Revelation. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't feel very comfortable about that. So I make no apology for the fact that I believe that the world would be a lot better off if we had a lot less religion. Now, religious conservatives are certainly going to be offended by this, if they were to hear me say it. But I can't help pointing out that they all say almost exactly the same thing. Let me read you a quote from Bill Bright, who was, before his recent death, the leader of Campus Crusade for Christ, which was one of the country's major campus-oriented student fundamentalist organizations. It's a parachurch organization. Bill Bright said, and I quote, "I am opposed to religion. History records that religion has done more than any other one thing to keep men in ignorance and fear and superstition throughout the centuries." And that's from a Christian conservative himself. Now, he goes back and says, well, Christianity is not a religion, which is kind of ludicrous. It's also against the Bible, because the Bible calls Christianity a religion. But his point is, a point that you're going to hear time and time again from pulpits all over the country, that the world would be a lot better off without everybody else's religion, except for theirs, of course. Now, the difference between them and me is that, and most of the people in this room, I hope, is that I believe that the world would be a lot better off with a lot less of every kind of religion. So I simply believe in one less religion than they do. They're saying the same thing that I am, essentially. So when I talk about how we dialogue with Christians and how we help them make better informed decisions about their beliefs, there's sort of a macro reason. You know, I'm concerned about foreign policy. I'm concerned about where I see the country going. I'm concerned about people with first century beliefs, with their finger on the button of a nuclear weapon, or a stealth bomber, or a cruise missile, or all sorts of other things. But I'm also, on a deeper level, concerned about people individually. I used to be a Christian fundamentalist, and God is, to a Christian fundamentalist, God is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. He's kind of got multiple personality disorder, because on the one hand, he loves you, he's your best friend, and on the other hand, a lot of times he's really mean to you. And he's really mean to a lot of people. And if you look in the Bible, he's really mean to a lot of people that supposedly he really loves. So we'll go over this in more detail in a few minutes, but suffice it to say that if you had a daughter who was dating a guy who said some of the things that God said to the people that he loved, that you would probably not be too happy about it. If your daughter was dating somebody who did some of the things to her that God does to some of the people that he loves, you'd have the guy arrested. In fact, this is Alabama. You might just shoot him. He needed shooting. It's perfectly good legal defense down here. And with some of the stuff that Jehovah does to his followers, it's just really bizarre. So I really want to help these people, and I really mean that. I understand that a lot of times they're not very nice to us. A lot of times they're bigoted, they're critical, they're mean, they're out to take our rights away from us. But deep down inside, the thing that's motivating this is fear. They're afraid of anything that doesn't fit inside their belief system. And they have a belief system that they know deep down in their heart of hearts is not working very well for them. Now, they think it's their own fault. If I would just get more dedicated, if I would just pray more, if I would just become more like God, which is kind of a scary thought. We'll go over that in a few minutes. But if I could just do better, then it would work for me. But it never does, because it can't, because it's not true. So I feel really, really sorry for these people, because a lot of times the perceived punishment that God gives these people is way out of proportion to any conceivable offense. I heard a Christian speaker one time talking about how he wanted to give his car to Jesus, which I don't understand why Jesus needs a car. But, Jesus is kind of like Star Trek, beams over to places, and he can walk through doors and stuff, but he wanted to give his car to Jesus. So he gave his car to Jesus, and then he wrecked his car. And he thought that was a good thing, because God was teaching him a lesson. That's kind of comical, but it can get really serious. I had a cousin who, she had to work because of economic necessity, so her baby was newborn, or relatively newborn, 6-month-old child, was in daycare and died from sudden infant death syndrome. So this lady was already on a guilt trip, because she was very conservative, and her church said women are supposed to stay home and take care of their children, but if the kid was going to eat and have a roof over his head, then she was going to have to work. So at the funeral,